Hi, everybody. A little bit of background. We have two sister companies. Okay. One is more SMB focused and the other one is more enterprise focused. So we had two separate HubSpot instances. One, we were paying for two HubSpots, we were maintaining two HubSpots. And after a year of doing that, it got to be a lot because we do everything together. The teams do absolutely everything together. We were having to duplicate sequences, dashboards, workflows, and you can imagine how much work that became because we have a workflow for everything. But so we finally decided to merge the two together. And yes, we did it the week after inbound, which was insane to do, but we were on time schedule. So we did it. And it's great for us as admins, but the sales reps were having trouble because inevitably they would log into the old portal and start working and not realize they were in the wrong place and then go, oh my God, now I have to go duplicate this all over again in the other one. And I searched all over the forums. There is no fix for this. Everyone's been asking for it for years to have a default portal to log into. And I'm not a dev, so I don't know the background to why this hasn't been done. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. But regardless, we had to have a fix. So in the boot camp, I brought it up, and Allie at HubSpot Hacks, we talked back and forth, and she goes, well, what about a dashboard? So I created this to be the dashboard that everybody logs into in that portal. If they log into that portal, I made it their default. This is what they see. So now they know that they are in the wrong place. And I know that there are a lot of people, I've been reading all kinds of posts and everything, who have like different companies that they use, different instances in HubSpot for. And I thought, well, maybe this will help other people. You could name it, business A or business B, so that you know where you are with it, because everyone knows what it's like to be on a mission and just log in and start working and then realize you're in the wrong place. So anyway, hopefully that will be helpful to people. The other thing that we did with dashboards is I made dashboards for all kinds of stuff. Can you guys see the new one that says deal reg? I got all the deal registration information for our manufacturers, and I put it in here. So all they have to do is come to this. There's the link to log in. There's exactly who to contact, what the requirements are, what to do step by step. Some of them even have a video attached. We also have a dashboard called HubSpot Learning Center. And our president, who is my co-leader in HubSpot, who is fantastic, he does so much, he's amazing. He has made all of these are videos. And so if you need to reinstall the plugin for Outlook because you had an Outlook update and it broke, who knows what that's like? You just click on this and it takes you right to the video. They're like 3 to 5 minute videos. They're not long. They show you, he shares the screen, shows you exactly what to do for all of these things. We have another one called sales training, where I've been uploading some videos and whatnot. There's another one called spiffs and incentives, where there are different incentives going on. There's, as you can imagine, all kinds of like documents. Because I know you can upload documents, but this is an easy place for them to go find the manufacturer and see what they want to see. And then the last thing that we did is we created a ticket pipeline for HubSpot wants and wishes. If people, it's called HubSpot change requests. If they want like a playbook created, all they have to do is go in and put a ticket. It assigns to me and generally me and our president. We work on these together, but we do have a couple of other people who jump in. and we can take care of the things that they want to see. But this was the big one for us. This has saved a lot. Anyway, I'm done.
That's amazing. I love all of these so much. And just for anyone looking to implement some of these things, I'd like to call out specifically the tools you're using. So you're using a lot. You can embed stuff on dashboards, not just HubSpot reports. That's a underutilized feature I think more people should be excited about. But for that first one, you were setting default dashboards for people. Were you also setting their home pages or like presets or something to make sure they were landing there, or were most people going to that?
I walked every single person through this, and I I held their hands one by one, and I had them share their screen and set their default page to be that dashboard.
Nice.
So now there's no, and then I had them test it because I've met them before.
That's great. And then I love all the resources you put on dashboards. And they look beautiful. They're very readable and organized, and
well, thank you.
I like them a lot. And then the last one, the ticket pipeline. Managing internal requests through a ticket pipeline, I think, is really smart. You mentioned they get assigned to you. Is that a default you set up, or is that a training you gave people, or?
No, it's a default that we set up. If it's an AV ticket for our audiovisual department, it goes to that department director. But other than that, it goes to me and our president, and we work on them together and do whatever needs to be done.
Amazing. Anybody else have any questions for Michelle? And I want to call out, is this available for Marketing Professional? I'm not sure which thing you're referring to, but tickets are in Marketing Professional. The dashboards are, I think, everything we talked about you could do with Marketing Professional. Right?
I wasn't watching chat, so I'm sorry if there's any questions that I didn't hit.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm telling you, the HubSpot Learning Center dashboard has saved us so much time. Our sales reps are pretty spoiled, and they've been used to, tapping us on the shoulder for everything they need.
Yeah.
And I started just directing them to the dashboard. And after a few months of doing that, they're finally doing it on their own. Yay!
Amazing. Yeah.
Our little kids are growing up.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of praise in the chat. Not a lot of questions. So people are just loving what you built. Michelle, thanks so much for taking the time and fitting us in. We have to run to another meeting.
I'm honored that you asked me to present, really and truly.
Yeah.
But if anyone wants to reach out on LinkedIn, connect, ask questions, I'm happy to help.
Great. Yeah, Deanna dropped your LinkedIn link a little earlier, so.
Drop it again.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to move on now to Jeff.
All right. Everyone can hear me. Everyone can see me. So this solution I'm going to talk about here, I have mostly a deck to share because we all know HubSpot. So I'm talking more about the approach because there's some workflows that I didn't want to waste everyone's time waiting 3 minutes for a workflow to kick off and do stuff. So welcome to ask any questions as we go along, but I do have screenshots in here. So all of those will look familiar, but let me see if I can share this screen and we'll go from there. Okay, everyone should be seeing.
Looks good.
Beautiful aircraft.
Yep.
All right, so we're Immaculate Flight. We're the nation's largest privately held aircraft cleaning and detailing company. I always like to tell people who are not familiar with that we're the Stanley Steamer of private and business aviation. So we have our situation here is we had several clients who pay us monthly. I'm sure many people on here are familiar with this challenge for regular service, and we just needed a better way to manage those contracts. So the challenge really was to improve our regional managers' experience of having to enter contracts on a monthly basis. Prior to this, what they would do is they would go every month on the 1st or the 15th or the last day of the month, depending on when they wanted to do it. They would have to remember to go in and create these deals for these contracts and push them through. So we wanted to improve that. We do have to allow for flexibility of to not bill or to bill on a monthly basis. Sometimes an aircraft is in maintenance, and so we're not able to clean it. So we had to allow that flexibility. We needed a way to create recurring revenue so that we could view it in sales forecasts. Also a big issue in the community, I know. We needed a way to track remaining services on a contract. So if we sold maybe 12 carpet extractions over the course of a year, we needed a quick way to be able to either run a report or see how many of those are remaining. And then we wanted to change the existing process as little as possible because salespeople. So we wanted to do as little change as possible. So that was kind of the challenge there. And just as a little bit of context, this is the HubSpot process flow as it exists today that we are working with. I'll quickly kind of go through this. Basically, it starts with a deal down in a sales pipeline. Each of the lanes here is a different pipeline. So the sales rep would create a deal. They would move it over to ready for scheduling. Once they were ready for that, there was an automation then that would take that from and move that into the scheduling pipeline. Scheduling then would reach out to the regional team that was assigned for it to figure out, can you do this carpet extraction? Can you do this exterior clean? Once that was moved to confirmed, the deal then moved to a service pipeline. And a ticket is automatically created. That's through a custom coded action. So that ticket then goes to the right service team that flows through the fulfillment process where the team actually completes the service and marks it as complete. That will then update the associated deal back in the sales pipeline, because sometimes what happens is they might be on an aircraft and then maintenance needs to get on or something. So sometimes the services requested can't be completed. So there was that little wrinkle in there that we had to allow for. So the regional kind of goes through and makes sure you requested these, we delivered these. That happens in that, and then they move it over to ready for finance when everything is solidified. And that then goes through some other workflows and creates invoices and all that good stuff. So this is just very quickly kind of the process that we've got in place in HubSpot today that we kind of wanted to hook into for these recurring contracts. All right, so quick walkthrough here. So what we did is I created a new pipeline for recurring contracts. So the reps go in, they will create a deal in the recurring contracts pipeline. I've got some dependent properties in there that just request then some contract related properties, mostly the start and end date, but we use the recurring amount and billing frequency also, because these can be, they can pay monthly, they can pay quarterly, they can pay annually. So that sets that there. And then any tail numbers. So the rep goes in and creates the deal this way and adds the line items. So once they add the line items in here, they add the actual services that we're going to do and the quantity that we are expected to deliver over the course of the contract. So for example, an exterior cleaning that we're going to do once a month over the course of 12 months, we would put 12 on there for that contract. And then they move it through. So this is kind of where the magic starts to happen here. So when that contract moves to a won and active state, a custom coded action workflow kicks off and creates a child deal then for every month between the start and end month. So you can see all of these child deals here. Those are automatically then associated to the contract, and an association label of monthly invoice is put on those. And then whatever the recurring amount was, that goes in as the deal amount. And then the close date is also set to the first of the month for that month. So now, because these are just regular deals, we can see recurring revenue in pipelines for all of the reps. So those things then get created and they live in the sales pipeline in a contracts stage. So the rep at any point can go in there and filter by what deals are closing this month. And when they're ready, they can move those through. Unless the plane was in maintenance or something, then they can just move it out and move it to an archived pipeline, or change the title and close date of the deal and move it to the end of the contract. That's up to them. So those live in the sales pipeline. And then this simply handles the billing portion of our contract management. So all of the services that go through, just kind of the established business process prior to even me joining the company, was we would bill kind of as a whole separate process for the services, and then the services were kind of zeroed out, so because they were associated to a contract. This also then will create and pin a note to the contract deal with instructions and reminders and links and all of that, so that inevitably when they forget how to do these, because they do them once a year, they have resources available to them. So this kind of solved a few parts here. All of those child deals being created for the invoices. So now the reps can save time, month after month by just taking the invoice that's there or the deal that's there and moving it into ready for finance. And then that's taken care of for them, so they can't forget any. They can, but in theory. And then future revenue can be reported on, since these are just deals with future close dates. And then reps also have that flexibility to move deals in the contract stage when and if they want to kind of account for if a plane is in maintenance and whatnot. So that kind of handles our billing portion of those. It kind of creates those child deals. We can send those through when we need. Now it comes to the kind of the servicing of that. So now a client would reach out who's under contract and say, hey, I need you to do one of these, carpet extractions or exterior cleans, whatever it is. So when that service is requested by the client, the rep goes to the contract and the recurring contract deals and clicks the plus add button over there on the right-hand side and adds an associated deal to the contract. And then HubSpot will then associate that deal, and then they add this service request label to that child deal. And then they just add the services that we're going to do on there as line items. That deal then flows through all of the existing process. So it kind of goes through all of that same stuff. It gets scheduled, the service is completed, a ticket's created, all of that gets done. So that deal is then sent to the scheduling team, kind of that whole thing. Once the work is complete, the service team selects the services that were completed. This is interesting too, because in this business, sometimes the pilot will come and say, hey, can you tack on this service? Or, hey, our flight plan changed. We're leaving early. I need you to not do that service. So we needed kind of a manual check in there. So the service team can say, these are the services that were done. These were added. These were changed. So that heads back to the regional. The regional kind of makes any necessary adjustments to the deal amount and sends that through to ready for finance stage. Then when that job hits the accounting pipeline, to us, that kind of means it's closed. So a custom coded action workflow kicks off. It will loop through all of the completed services and then compares each line item on the completed services to the line items on the original deal. For any match that it finds, it increases the services delivered property, which is a custom property on a product or line item, and then adds an instance with a link. Down here, you can see kind of that, let's see here, this little guy here, maybe, laser pointer, this guy here. This, if you actually click into the line item, you can see this. These are links to the deals with dates, so we can actually see when we performed that individual service. So it adds that also. Services that are completed that are not on the contract. So let's say a pilot came and said, hey, can you do a carpet extraction, but that wasn't under contract. That will actually end up down here in a new little report for a la carte services. So those are anything that's outside of contract. So it keeps track of that as well. And then those single object reports are added to the contract details tab, which is another little custom tab on the deal record to show the requested and completed services. And so reps can then review all the completed services for a contract by viewing the contract detail there. So there we go. Challenge accepted. We improved the regional manager experience. They don't have to enter those contracts on a monthly basis. They just drag them over. They have the flexibility to not bill or bill at different times during the month. We created a way for recurring revenue to be viewed in sales forecasts. We created a way for them to track remaining services in a contract. And then we changed the existing process as little as possible. So that is what I have for you. So,
wow, that is really impressive. I'll tell you straight up, I would not be able to build something like that. The chat is full of mingled praise and airplane puns. So dig through that. We're gonna move on to the next one. But thank you so much for sharing that. That's really impressive.
Absolutely. Me too.
Zoya, how about you?
Hi, friends. My name is Zoya Esti. Just a little bit of background. I'm actually a Platinum HubSpot partner. I used to be a CAM. So I used to work at HubSpot for 4.5 years. And then 2.5 years ago, I realized I'm too much of a HubSpot nerd to, just demo the same tools again. And I actually want to create and solve problems. And so Zesty Consulting was born. We're actually in the process of rebranding to Zesty Growth Partners. And our specialty is sales process design, specifically scalable sales process design, and building tools that are easy, intuitive, and automated so that, reps are able to spend more time building relationships and not managing annoying tools and redundancies. And so what we were seeing with a lot of our clients was missing data, inconsistencies with sales process, like, hey, we need them to figure this out, or, update these fields. And you can have the required fields, for example, when you move a deal stage, but in other situations, unless you're moving a deal stage, there isn't necessarily, oh, you have to remember to enter in this property, or, limiting scrolling. So what we did was we started using emojis to highlight special or important fields, processes, things that you just want your eye to go to. And so I'll show you a couple of our favorite use cases, and I have a couple do's and don'ts to share at the end. But this has really been such an easy win. People love it. It saves so much time. So let me just get my screen share here. So my first favorite use case is association labels, right? So association labels are so easy to miss. But when you have a lot of associated contacts on a company, for example, and you want to be able to quickly to see who's the main person, or in this case, for example, they need to know that this account is a house account, so they can't actually market to these people. So we needed to, just have that little bit of a red alert so that people can quickly see, oh, okay, shouldn't send a sequence to these people. These are a house account. Here's another example where we have a leader highlighted. So, imagine you have a list of 100 contacts on a record, and you wanted to see who's the main point of contact. I can quickly find that person. We also use those outside of association labels to highlight important properties, or properties that you want to be able to, again, just quickly bam and see. So for example, in this project, they just wanted a quick action to create a lead that just copies information over when it's qualified. So instead of going over here to add and go through all these steps, all they have to do is bam, hit yes, and now that lead is going to be created for them. And wherever you have this preview, again, it's just so easy to find. Another place we use emojis is in lists. So here, for example, you want to send an email campaign to your main marketing list. And I have all of these other marketing lists. But if I just scroll down, then I see, oh, boom, here it is. Right. So there's my master marketing list. I'm just highlighting the important places, not too many. Here we're using them to highlight an important column. So again, you have a lot of scrolling. So here we're actually adding them to the tabs. So in this case, they know that, okay, great, here's the 3 action places that when these sales reps are going through and following up on their accounts, they know that they have to take an action here, here, and here. So we've highlighted these 3 columns for them so that it's just quicker access without having to scroll and look. Another one, workflows. So workflows, I would only highlight the actual name of the workflow, and very, very sparingly. One of our don'ts is you don't want to create like a secret code or a language like these. For example, we highlighted because every time a rep is out of office, they need to be taken out of a lead rotation. So I just add a little, it's just these 2 workflows. No other workflows have emojis, just these 2 that need the most frequent edits in this particular case, so that Jesse, the sales director in this case, knows to come in and take somebody out of a rotation when they're on vacation. Tabs, so we use them to highlight past due, or here's your hottest leads to follow up with. Here's the most important fields, so just again, easily being able to jump in to see where the deals that may need a little extra help are hiding. And then this one, again, you can see here we have another use case of the association label. So I'm scrolling, I see this is the current deal. So in this case, this is actually a HIPAA project. This is non-surgical weight loss. We're actually submitting an impact award on this one. But they had issues with, data going to the wrong records. So we made sure that we're keeping the most current up-to-date information on the association label. So again, you just highlight and you know which is the most active open deal. And then lastly, all this coming together. So again, this one kind of shows a few of these different use cases. So we have the association label here over here. We also have a couple of quick actions that we built. So when they need to sync information from one record, or if they need to create associated objects, they can do so right from here. And then in this case, we actually limited so that they can't move deal stages. We deal stages for this particular team. They had a very messy sales process, a lot of PTSD, but we simplified it to only 7 stages. It's been very, very clean. But the most important one, and we've really ironed this out, so that these were the information that was often not being collected. It was being missed. Even if you move it, people were just putting in something, or they're like, oh, well, why didn't it update? And so we wanted to make sure that you could always go and find these important things that may trigger automations, or these are the properties that copy over to all the other associated records. So we just said, hey, all the purple checkboxes, anywhere you're on in your HubSpot portal, look for the purple checkboxes. If any of them are empty, you're missing something important. And so that really helped us with ensuring consistent adoption of these properties. They don't have to fill everything in, but specifically for the ones that trigger automations or are important elsewhere, we wanted to make sure that none of those are being missed. So a couple little do's and don'ts from what we found. So do use them in association labels to identify key contacts at a glance. Saves a lot of time, really just nice to see them. You can add them to workflows that need frequent edits. So especially like, hey, I'm going to be out of office. So if you need to update this workflow, I highlighted the workflows you need to know. So it's just easy for them to find them. We highlight key properties on records to limit scrolling, or just, be able to find those quick actions. We use them to highlight important views, tabs, or lists. Those are our main use cases. What I recommend not doing: do not create a code or secret language of emojis. That's actually how the idea came to us. Was we were in a project that was using emojis in all the wrong ways, and they were using workflows to update deal names, which is actually my next one. Don't do that. They were using emojis to update deal names, and then they had a code of like this product and this service and this. Too messy. Nobody could decipher it. It was too many emojis. Every deal had an emoji. It lost, which is the next thing. Don't overuse them. It lost its effectiveness. It was very, very hard to use. It was not scalable. And then we had to unwind and remove all the emojis from everything. So use them very, very sparingly. Think just a little bit of seasoning, not like the whole meal. And I also wouldn't use them in the data fields. I think that we have one use case somewhere where, like, in a drop down, the most important, like this is a hot, our best fit, we have one somewhere. But generally speaking, I wouldn't be recommending adding emojis to like all of your free text fields. And just in case anybody needs a resource, this is what we use. So I use Emojipedia. I'm a millennial. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but I just find my emojis, I copy and I paste it in. It keeps it very simple. So I don't know if I have a shortcut on my laptop. But massive time saver. The clients love it. And again, it's really helped us with our adoption, driving consistent data collection, and just streamlining those sales processes so people can move through and, help customers a little bit faster.
Amazing. Love that. Lots of love in the chat again. It's funny. I used to advocate for using emojis, and then we got deal tags. And I was like, now you don't need emojis anymore. Now I realize I was deeply underthinking all the useful things. It's really great. Thank you. Also, from one Windows user to another, Windows key period gives you your emoji key. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
With that, we will power on ahead to Daniel.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually. I'm Daniel from Romania. I represent the RevTech agency, which is a HubSpot solution partner. And today I'm going to give you a few examples of some low-hanging data governance fruits. And the context is that working with clients, probably the number one challenge that we run into and our clients run into is the quality of their data. So there's always some missing piece of data, some dirty data, some non-existing data, basically data in all sorts of shapes and forms. And through the time, we found a few, let's say, quick wins in which we basically implement a series of custom properties, lists, and workflows into the HubSpot accounts of our clients to complement on what the native HubSpot properties do. And I'll give you a couple of examples. HubSpot, for example, has a seniority property, which is a single line text, which is used for integrations, and it pulls out data if you have a third-party data provider. But if you want to segment, for example, your contacts in your HubSpot database based on their seniority, there's no easy way to do that. You can very easily, in like 1 minute, implement a job seniority drop-down property that can have values like, I don't know, executive, director, manager, individual contributor, junior, and whatever values make sense for you. Implement a list that captures the contacts that share a certain pattern in their job titles, and then use a workflow to map that information out. So I'm going to share now my screen and show you a couple of such examples. So for the seniority part, it's pretty easy. I mean, you just ask ChatGPT to give you a list of most common job titles that are used in individual contributor job titles, or you can do it with, like, I don't know, director job titles, which are pretty straightforward. You basically want to include certain keywords, but want to exclude managers, executives, or individual contributors. Pretty straightforward. It's easy to manage it with lists because it makes maintaining this structure much easily rather than use these keywords within workflows. And the workflows are pretty straightforward. You just go through the seniorities, you check if your contact has a job title and doesn't have a job seniority. You check the executive list. Is it member of that executive job titles? Set it as job seniority executive. Then check director, check manager, individual contributor, and so on. Pretty straightforward. In a few minutes, you can have this set up. And if you have a big database, you will get a lot of advantages in being able to segment context based on seniority. If you look into this screen, you will see a few other data governance examples, like setting today's date. We don't have that property in HubSpot, but now we have the ability to actually count days to today from a past or future property. Industry, at contact level, you have an industry that is a single line text again, but at company level, you have a default or a native property that is a drop-down type of value. It's very easy to clone the company property at contact level and create a workflow that actually looks at those industry values and copies them in between the two properties. If you have a certain industry in your single line text coming from an integration, you can actually map that into a drop-down to make, again, segmentation much easier. Similar with country, region, country drop-down properties. Again, at company level, you have a drop-down property. At contact level, you have a single text property because it's used for integrations. And you want to map that data to have the same structure of segmenting contacts, companies, and other data points in HubSpot. And then with these little things, you can actually move further into segmentation and, for example, use job seniority, department, and the job title to map a less used property in HubSpot, which is the buying role. Yeah, and here you can just use some assumptions. For example, a lot of enterprise companies or companies that are targeting enterprise customers are selling to buying committees. And it's often a very tedious manual job to actually label every contact in HubSpot database, if that's an executive sponsor, if that is a broker, if it's, I don't know, someone from risk and compliance, and so on. And this makes it very easy to get a quick run on labeling every contact, or at least those that have the job title, seniority, and department, to label these buying roles. I mean, if job seniority is director, usually at the department level, the director is the budget holder. Again, an assumption. You can change these assumptions based on your specific case. Executive sponsors, usually these are leadership roles. Yeah, VPs, even CEOs or founders in smaller companies and so on. So just map this logical matrix, if you want, between job titles, seniorities, and department to what the buying role makes sense for your company. And again, with just a simple workflow that goes through all these types of buying roles and checks these assumptions against job titles and seniority and departments, and you can label that, or you can have that data point into HubSpot as well. Another interesting example in bringing a lot of segmentation data into HubSpot is mapping job title to departments. Again, pretty straightforward. You can create departments and regular job titles that you find in various departments, like, I don't know, risk and compliance. Again, just ask ChatGPT to give you a list of top 50 or top 100 job titles separated by a comma on a single line, and then you just copy paste those into department lists, and then you use these lists to actually map contacts by department: leadership, finance, HR, whatever rocks your boat. Yeah, you can make this property, for example, a drop-down property, or you can make it a multiple checkbox, because depending on different job titles, you might have, let's say, contacts or job titles that are part of different departments. Let's say you have a chief product officer that's part of the leadership or the executive department, but is also part of the product department, and you want to capture that information. Again, basically, you can play with these data points and add and enrich the data and keep the data in sync in your HubSpot with almost any element or any data point that is of importance for you and your company.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Lots of good comments in the chat again. Lots of positive feedback here. We're going to keep moving ahead with Crystal.
There we go. Hello, everybody. I'm gonna, before I share my screen, a little bit of background. So I have been managing CRMs for a couple decades now, and recently joined an organization earlier this year. When I joined, they were very honest with me that things were a total mess and that the systems didn't really talk very well. And sadly, nobody really knew what was going on, and there was no documentation. So it was quite the challenge to start off with. And I'm sure there's a few people who understand this. And so also within my first 2 weeks, we decided that we were going to sunset Salesforce and we were going to migrate to HubSpot, and we had 6 weeks to do it. So it was a lot of movement all at once. And it became very clear to me that in order for me to be successful, I had to make the CRM work for me as much as it was for it to work for the reps. And yes, it's to draw customers. If I was going to keep my head above water, I needed for the CRM to be proactive and educate me on what I needed to do inside of it. So the first thing that started down this path was our marketing team explained that we only had one source of entry point into our CRM. And I know that's not true. However, they had the best intentions. And so what I did is I started setting up these workflow leaks. And I'm going to share my screen because this has literally changed my life as an admin. And I'm really excited to share this. So the first and foremost is that anytime a lead comes in that we don't know who you are, it tells me. And so before the users are ever complaining that the leads aren't getting, or lead flow is really slow today, or we're seeing a gap, I get an email notification that there is a leak inside of our forms. And typically this means that maybe marketing set a form live and forgot to tell me, or we brought on a new partner and they're moving so quick. So to show you guys how this works, I have my workflows set up so that they're very, very wide nets. And so on this one, it's, did they submit a form? And it re-enrolls every single time that they submit this form. It means this workflow gets a ton of action. As it goes through, you'll see I already have a contact in here right now. But as it goes through, it's going to say, is this a known contact that I'm okay with us moving and sending over to sales? Is it from our website? Is it from a partner? Is it from a paid campaign? Is it a partnership? Did they sign up for a webinar? Everything you see here. And if it didn't do any of those, and I don't know who you are, tell me. And what it does is this email goes out to our team. It includes a little bit about the contact, and it allows for me to action that and fix it before it ever even becomes a problem. The contact then sits inside of this delay that I conveniently call a quarantine, and I can decide what I need to do with it to action it. Sometimes it's a test lead and it doesn't need to go to anybody. Sometimes it's a sales lead and it should go to someone, but it allows for me to choose that. In addition, this ended up sparking another idea, same vein of, well, what happens if contacts come into our system, but they were already in there and no one knows? And so what my next one is, I call it a lead leak. And so on the lead leaks, it's the same concept. It's that a contact has come through, but I should not be receiving sales leads. And so if I receive sales leads, it's the wrong person. I need to get this over to the right person. And so similar fashion, my lead leak alert, actually, here we go. My lead leak alert is same huge wide net. Did it fill out a form? Wonderful. Is it in an active sales team? No one needs to know I'm doing this. Yay. However, if it's in any of these other things, I need to know. And if it's in one of our inactive teams, I have both an alert and I also have a Slack message that goes out to me. So I can just quickly look at this, see, I know who this person is. This is acceptable. Everybody can move about their day. But in doing this, I've actually found several leads that have come back into our funnel that we would 100% have missed if we didn't have this in place. So those are my two, just making the CRM work for us as admins just as much as it's working for our reps that we're supporting.
Love that. This may be the moment where I reveal my actual ineptitude as an admin, but why I say all the time, no one should ever hire me as a HubSpot admin. I don't know how the real world works, just HubSpot theory. So at the end of your branches, you have those really long delays. You call it a quarantine. Why have the delay at the end instead of just...
So what I have found is that it's sometimes very difficult to get contacts back into workflows or objects back into workflows in the right place that you want it at. And so it's really beautiful because what I can do here, and I'll share up one more time because I do this quite often. In this one, at the end, if I decide, you know what, this actually was a legitimate lead from our marketing and we need to tag this as a paid campaign so that we have the right attribution, I can simply change this and go to the action it should have went to.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, and so I may dump this up into our paid campaign, create that connection, and then now I don't have to go in and try to edit a workflow or do anything funky here. That's also why it's 99 days and 3 minutes. Because all I have to do is change my days to 0, and now the contact will continue through it like it was supposed to have happened in the beginning. I correct it doesn't happen ever again.
That's amazing.
It's how you don't have to build 30 extra workflows to do that one teeny tiny little task.
Correct. Someone put this back now, but
yeah.
That's why we have the quarantines there. It's a holding space without them having ever completed the workflow. So I don't ever have to get them back in. No re-enrollments, no anything like that.
Amazing. And I'm glad I asked because the chat is exploding with praise for you. So I guess it was a good question.
Great question, yeah.
Crystal, thank you so much for sharing. It's amazing. Laura, take us home.
All right. Hi, everybody. Let me share my screen. All right. Sorry, not trying to do the picture-in-picture thing. Can you guys see my desktop?
Looks good.
Awesome. Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Brennan. I'm the RevOps manager at Midtown Athletic Club. I live in Denver. I'm a UW-Madison grad. That's why I'm wearing the red sweater. And I have 8 years of experience using HubSpot and then 10 years in CRM and marketing automation. Fun fact, I actually started with what was at the time a competitor of HubSpot. I certainly wouldn't consider it one now, but I was an implementation manager. And in working with our new clients and onboarding them, I quickly realized that most of our clients were wildly unprepared to actually bring on a tool like HubSpot or the one that we were using. They hadn't done the necessary pre-work to get their data in order, and they were not in a place to automate things. So that really inspired me to work in-house and use those secrets that I learned to get businesses in a place where they can actually use tools like this. Midtown Athletic Club is a luxury tennis and athletic club. So we have 8 locations. 4 of them are in the Chicagoland area, and then the other 4 are up and down the Eastern Seaboard. We also have a hotel at our flagship location in Chicago. So that's been a fun new industry to break into for me. And our club was actually featured in a Netflix movie, The Killer with Michael Fassbender. So if you want to take a peek at what our clubs look like, that's a good spot to do it. So the challenge that we were facing is that we wanted to move our new member onboarding program into HubSpot. We were using this really clunky system of SharePoint sites and manual tasks. We couldn't report on anything. there was no transparency. It was just very, very old fashioned. So it needed to go no matter what we used to replace it. But because we had HubSpot for marketing, sales, and CRM, we felt like that was a really good place to build it. So we rolled that out in Service Hub. That's a whole other story that I can share on a different day. But we would be adding hundreds of new users. We're over 400 end users right now. And we were around like 60 before we rolled this out. So it was a huge, huge, huge change. And then our onboarding KPIs were eventually going to tell the story of whether or not this initiative was successful. So we knew that, but that's also a lagging indicator. It would take a couple months at least to really understand if this change was delivering on what we had promised. So we were trying to figure out, how can we understand adoption early on? How can we understand if people are actually using the tool, and also identify if there's anybody who doesn't maybe understand it, or if there's a location that's struggling to adopt everybody, and that would be a good training intervention. So we felt like user activity would be a good proxy for success. We really just wanted to see like what's our 7-day active user percentage, what's our 30-day, and then how many of our total users have ever been active, meaning like, do we have anyone in there who's never logged in? So these are pretty standard. I mean, you'll see this in Google Analytics and really any other tool, but we wanted to recreate that with our HubSpot user activity. When we built this out, user level reporting was not a thing. So what I had to do every week was download or export our user list, and then spend a lot of time in Excel slicing and dicing, sorting, filtering, and I had to do it in a way that was repeatable every week. I'm a very like process-oriented person, so it worked for me, but God forbid if anybody had to do that. If I was out that week, I had to leave very, very detailed instructions. It wasn't scalable. And also it just had the limitations of static data. You send out a report and it's out of date 5 minutes later. So it was what we had. It was the best we could do. And it gave us a lot of really insightful information about where our adoption levels were. But it had a lot of obvious drawbacks just in terms of like process and scalability. So we did bring on Ops Hub Enterprise. This was back when datasets required enterprise and not professional. I was delighted to hear that, but unfortunately it was a month or two after we re-signed our contract for another year. So we might be downgrading, we'll see. But datasets are incredible. So we upgraded our Ops Hub account in 2023 and kind of started playing around with that, but hadn't really done a lot with it. But in June of this year, HubSpot rolled out the ability to do user level reporting as an object. This was like Christmas, my birthday, every happy moment rolled into one. And my mind just exploded the second they announced this. So I got really, really excited and got to work. And I felt like I could save myself a lot of time, but also have the benefits of, real-time data. So just a disclaimer, this does require Ops Hub. I think you could probably do this with professional and not enterprise, but I'm very spoiled and have all of the enterprise tools. So if something is out of reach, forgive me. But hopefully this is a good explainer of like what you can do with Ops Hub and why it might be worth looking into. So we started by creating a user data set. And I think the most important pre-work here, just like I learned when I was onboarding new customers, is making sure that your data is organized and structured in a way that you can do things with it. Rich text fields are sometimes really problematic, but data sets actually open that up and allow you to turn them into something more of like an enumeration property. So the things that were important to us, team names, permission sets, we needed to make sure we were aware of what the property label was versus the internal value. Sometimes data sets can be really finicky on which one it's going to look at. So we just took a really, really deep look at how the actual user data was structured to understand what we needed to do with it. And then we also wanted to look at last active versus last login. Somebody might not have to log in each time they're active, so we decided to use last active as like the signal that someone was in the tool. And then next we just thought about like, how do we want to report on this? So we wanted to look at roles, and a role could be 4 different permission sets. So we have a lot of personal trainers, Pilates instructors, kind of every fitness role you can think of, but we wanted to roll those into one as like coaches, as an example. So we had to make sure to group those permission sets as one. We also wanted to segment by club, and you can't have custom user properties right now on users without a paid seat. So we needed to basically create a formula field that extracted the club location from the team name, the HubSpot main team, and say this team means that they're at this location. So it's a really cool way to just connect the dots when your data isn't structured in a way that allows you to report on it exactly the way you want to. Then we also just defined like, what are these groups? So we looked at active in the last 7 days, active in the last 30 days, and then ever active. And finally, we want to set our benchmarks. So in the really manual process, I had to go in and highlight everything. It's like, okay, if we're above 70%, they're green. If they're between 60 and 70, they're yellow. But I wanted that to be automated. I got greedy and I wanted that to all be baked into one. So that was what we had to make sure was outlined as well. So once I had my data set up with everything pulled in, I created these formula fields that I was just talking about. This is the actual formula. I'm happy to share these with anyone. OpsHub has also improved the datasets tool quite a bit since I built this out, even just a few months ago. So there's potentially easier ways to build these. But at the time, we had to have everything in these nested if statements and probably build it out a little bit more manually than you might have to now. But this is what the formulas look like. So active last 30 is a yes/no field. I built on top of that yes/no field with an aggregate. So I wanted to do a distinct count of yeses divided by the total number of users. And then I plugged in my benchmarks. This doesn't include the derived fields of like location and team and all of that role, but I can show you that in a second. And then we put it all together in a dashboard. So I'll show you a live version of what this looks like. When I finally got all of this together in one, this blew my mind. I still sometimes can't believe I did this because it took it from anywhere from like 30 to 90 minutes a week, which like isn't that much, but when you have a lot of things to do, that's a lot of time that you claw back. And now it takes me max 10 minutes. All I really need to do is review all of the data and then add a summary that says, you know, here's what happened compared to last week. So this is my favorite part. This has the benchmarks and the actual stats built in. So this is our kind of all users, but you can see here we have it segmented by location. So I'm able to see at a glance, okay, location 1, maybe not doing so hot in the 7-day activity. Location 2 is really struggling aside from the all user group. And this is always going to be real time. So even though I send this out weekly on Mondays, anyone can log into this at any time during the week and see what it actually represents. So this is all of our users. And then this is like our corporate HQ. And then we're able to break it out even by role. So I wanted to look at it just for trainers instead of everybody, because the corporate team is going to have a very different adoption level than our trainers who are actually on the field and using the mobile app for probably 90% of their interactions with HubSpot. And so this allows me to see like, okay, we have a little bit more trouble with this type of user. They're doing okay on that 30-day activity, but the 7-day activity maybe needs some help. And it looks like at a couple of our locations, you know, we need to review the user list and potentially reach out to management and say, hey, you have about 15% of your users who've never been active. Do you need any help getting them up to speed? The only manual part of this is I do push these into a Google sheet, more just for tracking trends week over week. There's not a great way, to my knowledge, to do this in HubSpot yet, but I use just some basic conditional formatting and plug it in this week and last week, and then I just add a new tab every week. So if anyone does want to go in here and look and see how things have trended over time, this is pretty easy to maintain, and this is really the part that takes me the 5 to 10 minutes. And then I have this formula that just shows change from last week, the delta. So we share this in our weekly team meeting, but again, this is shared out with all leadership and anyone can access this at any time. There's a lot of other applications for this sort of like aggregate roll-up reporting. So here's another example. I did something similar with NPS. So fun fact, if you're doing NPS in the surveys tool, it doesn't let you segment it at all. It's just NPS for the whole company, not by business unit, division, or location. So I was able to do this by club location as well. Quick wrap up, pros and cons. This saves a ton of time. It is, I just can't overstate that enough. This has taken so much time off of my plate and allowed me to focus on other things. It also is really scalable. So new and deactivated users are automatically factored in or out. So it scales with us. As people leave the company, they just automatically get filtered out because I have that filtered out in the data set. Cons requires enterprise ops hub. It does require a moderate time investment up front just to really like troubleshoot and make sure everything is correct. So I did a lot of comparing my manual spreadsheets to what was in the dashboard to make sure that it was working the way that I expected. But once that was all done, it was just an upfront time investment. And then it does require some ongoing maintenance. So some of the derived formulas are hard-coded. So we added a new permission set for coaches, and we had to make sure that that was folded into the existing group. I forgot about that for a week. So for 1 week, our stats were a little off. So you just want to make sure that you have a good system in place to do that. And that's it. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to learn more.
Amazing. Thanks, Laura, and thanks all of our presenters. That was incredible, start to finish. I really appreciate you all being here. I know we are at time, so I'll let you all get back to your Tuesday, but hope to see you all back for our last meeting of the year. We'll wrap things up. Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys. That was amazing.